Hi, welcome. Tonight we've got Hunter Fain, 2015 catcher from Bridgeport High School with us tonight. Current catcher for Morehead State University. Appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about your bio. As you're coming out of high school, what were some of the qualifications you had, some of the awards, some of the different things that made up your bio?
Academics-wise, I was vice president of the National Honor Society. I had like a 3.8 GPA. As far as high school accolades go, in athletics, I was all-state my senior year, catcher. Hit pretty well throughout high school, and that was pretty much it.
So as you walk through you've got a pretty unique story. As you went through the highs and kind of the lows of the recruiting process, can you talk a little bit about some of those times where it may have been tough, and then maybe some of the times where, like, all right, things are going really well?
Starting out is always the hardest part because you don't really know where to start. And so it's funny, a website, NCSA, actually reached out to me. I don't even know how they found out about me, but they asked me if I would be interested in their services. And so I started out with them, and once I got going with them, I really got into, they kind of coached me up on like emailing schools, and their platform was really easy because it had every email of current coaches on their staff. So I could go through and email them, show their interest and whatnot, and then from then on, I didn't as much use that software, but I had kind of like the schedule and itinerary of how I wanted to go about it through that website. And so in doing that, that helped from the beginning, and then I got working the ground up. I got a video made, and then once the video was made, that really got the attention of more people, and then it just spiraled out of control as far as coaches coming into contact with me. I may not have been interested in those schools, but at least I was hearing things from other people. And at the beginning, it was like there was nothing, and at that point, you panic. You're like, okay, well, what do I do? How do I get this ball rolling? So the website was a big thing for me, getting everything moving.
Great. So one of the questions I get from parents a lot are what are the events that I need to get my son or daughter at in the recruiting process? Looking back, were there certain events, showcases, or maybe big games that you think were kind of critical in your recruiting process?
Yeah, for sure. I know that like when I first started, they always say pick the universities you think would be your dream school. So I would look at schools and like want to go to their showcases without them showing any interest in me. And so I'd look at their camps and I'd sign up for their camps, and looking back on it now, I think that's the wrong way to do it. I think the best way, from what I experienced, was to go to the showcases where it's not one school's event. There are schools coming to this showcase, multiple schools. And then, based on how you do in that showcase, those schools will reach out to you personally, rather than you paying to the university and going and doing their camp. You're coming to them. And so you really have to stand out. They're not seeking you, you're seeking them. And I think the best way to do it is go to like, the one locally here is the Ed Santa that's always up at the Pro Performance. They have, there's Pro Scouts there, there's dozens of universities, and I think those kind of atmospheres, those kind of showcases, I think are the most beneficial because you really get a true kind of sense of who's actually interested.
So looking back, what do you think were maybe 2 or 3 of the key things that led to you getting a scholarship there at Morehead State? Was it an email, a phone call? Was it playing well at a certain game? Was there like a few things that you think that directly led to that? I
have a good network of people, starting with my parents. They were crucial in helping me get on a good summer ball team that traveled. And then also Alan Robbins, who runs First University, he was kind of my mentor. He helped me with my video, and he helped me reach out to the schools. He had more contacts than I did because he knew some of these coaches on a personal level. So he kind of got Morehead in particular, their eyes on me, got them interested, and then when they eventually did come to see me, I played really well in a game at my high school. And so that kind of was the icing on the cake for them. But yeah, it's just kind of the network of people really helped me move along. And then, like I said, that game really stood out for those coaches.
It's kind of odd the way, when you think back on how many games you played, and it comes down to that coach comes to one game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that game? Do you remember
Oh,
what
yeah.
you did?
Yeah, it was my senior night, and it was a doubleheader at home. And I remember I was so embarrassed because it was senior day, and on senior day we were taking pictures, team pictures, before the game, and the coach showed up really early, so he saw the whole debacle that was us trying to get it. And it's a bunch of high school guys messing around, and so I knew he was standing right there watching us, and I was just mortified. But then the games got on. The first game I hit a home run, I DH'd, and then the second game I got behind the plate and hit like 3 doubles off the right field wall. So it was good. He ended up leaving before I got to talk to him, but he sent me a text message later that night and told me he liked what he saw, and then I was in contact with him, phone calls, emails from then on, and it was, but I'll always remember it because it was such a crucial moment in my life, and all these guys are just clowning around at pictures right before the games, and this guy's watching us.
So talk to me a little bit about that communication process that you had with Morehead State or other coaches. Was it primarily email? Did you have conversations in person at camps? Was it text? What was it at that time?
With Morehead in particular, I originally started talking to them through email. And emailing back and forth, talking about when they could come see me play and when it worked out with their schedule, because they were in season as well, obviously. And then after they saw me play, they gave me a phone call, and we talked on the phone for probably 20, 25 minutes, and then it became more personal. We started texting because we had that phone call, and then it was just texting and phone calls until I got up to our official visit.
How frequent, for those who may have not texted or made a phone call to a coach, what was the frequency of the emails up front, and then what did it get to towards the end of the process?
Emails were more frequent because they aren't as personal. So emails, they probably email you probably once or twice a week. And then once I got the phone call from them, we talked for, like I said, 20, 25 minutes. And then they're texting you to see how games are going. At least in my instance, it was like right at the beginning of our state tournament run. So he knew when my games were for the regionals and the sectionals and the state championship. So he was asking me how I did over the week and if we had advanced. But in other instances where I had talked to other schools that hadn't come to see me play, but I had taken visits there because they had seen me maybe in showcases, but they didn't see me play in game. I got a couple phone calls from them maybe once a month just to check in and see if I had come any closer on my decision. But when you start to get real personal is when they give you a phone call after they've seen you play, then they start to text you, and it becomes more frequent.
As you look back now, because you're in your senior season now,
Going
into your senior season, were there any mistakes that you think you made during that recruiting process, coming up through high school, or something that maybe you would change or do better or differently?
I think just starting earlier in my recruiting process would have been beneficial. Not to say that you have to sign super early, because I signed after my senior season in the middle of summer, like a month before I have to be on my college campus. But I just think I had less eyes on me than, say, someone who did sign earlier, maybe as a sophomore. And so that could have been maybe because they were on a better travel team and they were getting more eyes, more exposure earlier. But I think if I had started with the website, the NCSA, gotten with them a little sooner, maybe my freshman year, and then gotten on to the summer team that I eventually did get on, which traveled and left this area sooner, would have been a lot more beneficial. Maybe it would have helped me out. But
So tell me a little bit, you mentioned the travel team. How did that work in your recruiting experience, and how important was that in your recruiting process?
So the organization is Huntington Hounds in Huntington, West Virginia. I tried out and was on the team my junior and senior year of high school. And before that, I had just played local Legion ball. And so I hadn't really seen anybody come into games to watch. For me as a prospect, everything up until that point, college of seeing me was just based on my video. And so when I got on this Hounds team, we're going to Cincinnati, Georgia, South Carolina. We went to Georgia, and there were 20 scouts behind on-plate radar guns, all their team polos, Tennessee, South Carolina. I mean, it was a culture shock. I had never seen anything like that. And so those first couple games are kind of like, when you see that, you're pressing, you're nervous. But as you get going, like I played for 2 years with this organization, it's an everyday thing. And I think starting earlier, getting that out of the way, and being used to these guys gunning you and clocking your times, that helps with your performance on the field when they do come to watch you. As far as it helping me with my recruiting process, that Morehead had actually seen me play very early on, and I guess it was one of those games where I was pressing because they didn't write me down, they didn't take any notes, but other schools had seen me from those games, and I had taken visits to some of those universities. They were smaller schools, but they were options, and that was something I didn't have before getting on that summer ball team. So I think it was instrumental in at least starting the recruiting process and learning how visits go and communicating with coaches.
So you mentioned the visits. Talk to me a little bit about unofficial visits and official visits, what visits you took, and kind of what that looks like for someone for a family who's maybe not been on a visit.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about what happens when you go. How did you get the visit, then that communication with the coach, and then what happens once you get there?
So every time that a coach wanted to bring me down for a visit, it started by email. They said, we'd love to have you on a visit. If you'd love to talk about it, here's my number. And so then you call the coach, and that's, honestly, it's a nerve-wracking experience because you don't know how to talk to somebody. It's like it's a first impression over the phone. But then they're very inviting. They know that you're nervous. I mean, you're a teenager. They understand that. They deal with it all the time. But they want you, and so they're going to understand that. So once you get past the phone call and you get onto the university, they usually, with an official visit, they take you around with, usually assistants will take you around the campus, show you facilities, classrooms, and then you'll usually go and get a meal with an athlete. And then when you have the meal with the athlete and the coaches, then after that, this is pretty typical, you go and have a meeting with the head coach, and they kind of talk to you about where they see you fitting into the program. They talk about money with you and your parents. And then from there, if it's an official or like an overnight, they'll send you off with the kids that you went to lunch with. And I had one overnight visit at Marietta College, and it was great. We went to the basketball game, and their basketball team was pretty good. We went to the basketball game, had pizza, whatnot, and then we went back to the dorms, played video games, and then they had an early practice in the morning. So we went to bed, got up, went to practice. Coach talked with us a little bit more as they were getting warmed up, and then we watched practice for a little bit, and then we went home. But the visits and talking with coaches, it's going to be a nerve-wracking time because you want to impress people. You don't want to say the wrong thing, but they're people too, and it's not like they don't understand that you're nervous. They were, more times than not, they did the same thing because they played the sport as well. So they went through the recruiting process. It's not as bad as you think it is.
You mentioned the video. How did video play a role in your recruiting process? Did you pay for a production company? Did you take it yourself? Where did you post it? How did coaches see it? And what kind of response did you get?
So I did it with Alan Robbins. We just set it up on a tripod and iPad, and he videotaped blocking, throws to second base, throws to third base, receiving, and then we took swings from behind home plate, from the side, and it took, it's over a period of days, because you want to get everything right, and then he helped me cut it, we cut it together, and then I put it on NCSA, and I could send that video out in every email that I emailed to a coach. But I also had the video saved on my laptop, so I could put that onto personal emails as well. And that's what I started to go with. But on NCSA, it was nice. You could see how many profile views you had, and then you could also see how many views your individual video had as well. Because sometimes they go to your profile, but they don't click on your video. So it was nice to get that ratio and see who had watched it. But yeah, that's what I did with the video. You want to get it right. I know friends have gone to production companies, then they come down, they take the video, I've helped people with it, and then they send it away and they get it back. There's a lot of ways to do it. I didn't go that route. I just did it on an iPad, did it homemade, and it worked out great. But it's just honestly preference, personal preference.
So can you talk a little bit about your coaches' roles? So high school coach, Legion coach, travel team coaches. What were their roles in the recruiting process? What did they do? How did they help or hurt the process?
My summer ball coach was pretty instrumental in talking to coaches one-on-one, face-to-face. Those, like I said, those coaches are at those events. They're gunning and timing people, and oftentimes they'll come up to the dugout and want to talk. Hey, what's this guy's GPA? Where's he from? Is he committed? I don't see it on your roster sheet. And our summer ball coach he had been through the process. He ended up getting drafted out of high school, but he had talked the talk with guys before, and so he was really helpful in talking to the universities that did end up contacting me. He was completely positive in everything he said. And then Alan Robbins played pro ball. He went to Winthrop University and then was drafted by the Phillies, and he helped a ton with emails and getting in contact with guys at programs that he played with in the past or people that he played for, and so that was really helpful.
Did you find that a lot of times that the coaches would talk with your summer league coach or someone like Alan to kind of start that communication or tell you, hey, give me a call, we're interested, rather than a lot of them, come directly to you?
Mm-hmm. With Morehead, they actually were in contact with Alan way before they were in contact with me. And they were kind of getting the background on me before they emailed me because they wanted it to be more personal. And so they emailed for probably a month before they ever reached out to me.
You've mentioned some different coaches and people. Who do you think were maybe a couple of the most influential people as you look back on your recruiting process?
Definitely my parents, like 100%. I mean, travel ball isn't for everybody. Some people just, it's expensive. It's a commitment. And my parents were great about just getting me wherever I needed to be, going through travel, hotels, staying on the road for every weekend of the summer. I mean, my dad took off work, but it was never something like that we couldn't do. Like, they knew it was my dream, and I owe them the world because they allowed that process to happen. And then Alan has been a huge part of my baseball life, almost as big as my parents. I mean, he's been with me every step of the way. I've known him since I was 8 or 9 years old, and I've been with him ever since. He helped me get to school. I mean, I owe him a ton.
So, yeah, you mentioned NCSA. Were there any other recruiting services or help, kind of outside help that you got as far as recruiting education, and how directly did that help you in the recruiting process?
There wasn't really anybody before NCSA. I honestly had no idea how to go about it. And that was the good thing. You can call people there, and it's like a hotline. If you have any questions, you can give them the situation that you're going through, and they'll kind of talk you through it. And they'll tell you the same thing. They'll kind of calm you down because they know you're nervous about maybe talking with a coach for the first time. They can run you through that. They have examples. They've talked to other people. So they're always there for you if you need them.
So tell me a little bit about, as you started it, what was your understanding of the recruiting process and the rules? Did you feel like you had it all down, or what was your experience with that part of it?
I honestly had no idea how it started out, how it worked. Starting out, I heard about dead periods and like when coaches could talk to you and whatnot, and I thought it was like gibberish to me. I had no idea. As I got further along, I really got Morehead started recruiting me heavily, like in a period where they could always talk to me. So I never went through that period where I could call a coach, but they couldn't call me. So I never really went through that. Why isn't he calling me? I never went through that.
So tell me about the process. So you're going through your senior season, you're having conversations with Morehead. How did the actual scholarship offer? How did the phone call, email, was it after a game, a tournament? How did that work and how did that make you feel?
So we went down, they had watched me before my entire, our state run started, the playoffs. And then they came down and watched me again in Charleston in the state tournament. And we had decided that after the state tournament was finished, I would go to Morehead and have my visit. And so at this point, there was no talk of money or scholarship or anything. So I didn't really know what to expect. I go on the visit, I go and tour campus with the coaches, and I didn't see a player at this visit because it was in the middle of summer, nobody was in. So I went with the assistants around, toured all the facilities, and then I sat down with the head coach. Him and my parents in his office, and then he discussed the scholarship with us. And then from that point, he said, take your time, take all the time you need, just let us know whenever, just give me a call and tell me. He said, call me and say, I'm ready to be an Eagle. So going home, the ride home, we're talking it over, my options. I was deciding between a junior college, Potomac State, and Morehead. And my parents were kind of weighing the pros and cons. Pot State's in state, it's closer to home. And so then my parents told me, they ended up, once we got home, they went to the store, I stayed at home. They come back, and my parents are weighing the pros and cons again and making it seem like they want me to choose Pot State, but they know really deep down that I want to go to Morehead. And so they're telling me all these things about Pot State, and they're like, it doesn't matter. I called Coach Mack, you're going to go to Morehead. And in that moment, just this rush of emotion just came over. I was so happy. So then from there, I called Coach personally and told him what he wanted to hear. I'm ready to be an Eagle, and we talked for probably 5-10 minutes, but it was probably one of the best days of my life.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
So here you are, you're a senior this year. Tell me about some of what you've accomplished there at Morehead State and kind of where you're at in your college career now.
So going in, my senior of high school, they won the ODC tournament in 2015. They were the champions, and they went on to the Louisville Regional. So going in, there was high expectations of winning. Our coach had been there at that time for 3 years and was building something, because before Morehead baseball wasn't anything special. So I knew going in that the standard was to win and compete for regionals. And so my freshman year, we got to the tournament. We got knocked out second round. Sophomore year, we were going into the tournament. We were one of the better teams. Thought we should win. Ended up losing to the team that went on to win the tournament. And then this year, we ended up winning. We won our conference tournament, and we played the regional in Clemson. It was the best experience of my life. After 2 years of being close and knowing that you should be the one to take home the ring, and then finally doing it your junior year, and now going into my senior year knowing we can do it again, it's just it's a good feeling, because you accomplished something that you sat down with your coach when it was during the recruiting process, and he told you, these are the goals, and then finally as a player you accomplished the goal. That was definitely one of the coolest things, was finally doing it, and now this year having an opportunity to repeat and win again.
So talk to me a little bit, what advice would you have if you've got some middle school or maybe some freshman, sophomore players and parents out there? What advice would you give them as they begin their recruiting process?
I would say don't be afraid to make contact with schools. Schools that you want to go to, but also schools that you didn't necessarily have in mind that have contacted you. Don't be ashamed of a school that you had no intention. Even if you don't think that school's a good idea, just being in contact with them will help you prepare for the schools that maybe do matter to you. And then getting on a good summer ball team that travels and goes to different areas, because like I said, those first couple tournaments where you play in front of scouts that you haven't seen, scouts that you think have a higher standard, like big schools or even pro scouts, you don't want to be jittery. So the earlier you can do that in your career and get those jitters out of the way will help you when you're older and they're still coming to see you. You'll play better. It's all around better for you.
Hunter Fain joined us to talk about his recruiting process. Appreciate you being with us tonight.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.